Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Daniel Blue of Quest Education. Daniel, it's great to have you on the show.
Crash, thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Definitely looking forward to it as well. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Daniel so you can hear about some of the awesome things that he's doing. And Daniel is a Forbes contributor and owner of Quest Education. His company helps people access their retirement accounts penalty and tax free to help them accomplish their financial goals, such as growing their business or paying off debt. After having a daughter at 19 years old and overcoming Oxycontin addiction, Daniel was able to make the transition from being an employee to an employer. Daniel, great to have you on the show again. Are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Yes, sir. Let's get to it.
Let's do it then. So to kind of kick everything off, I wanted to rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I like to call your CEO story.
Yeah, so I came from a home where my parents got divorced when I was 12. My mom pretty much raised me from that point on. So, single mom in California, money was tight. So didn't grow up with a ton of money. And at that time, I just knew, I'm like, man, I don't want to live broke, right? I see my mom struggling, busting her tail. And I just knew that the financial world was something I wanted to tap into. Ended up getting into sales at 18. I dropped out of college. And then I found myself in a position where I started to learn about self-directed retirement accounts and understanding that there's this whole new world, not new, it's been around for decades, but there's another way to actually look at retirement accounts beyond just the stock market. And ended up working for a company in the retirement account space for a few years and was able to transition into becoming a business owner. We've been around for about 3 years now.
Nice. Well, I definitely appreciate you, sharing that and just getting the opportunity to kind of, it sounds like, as I read in your bio, get the opportunity to have more freedom and more empowerment, more opportunity by being able to kind of know and understand that. Cause I'm a big believer in knowledge being power.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not one of those people that grew up wanting to be a business owner, right? You hear like Gary Vee talks about, he'd grab flowers, on the street and then sell them and, selling trading cards when he's like 10, right? Like there's a lot of people out there that have those stories of, always wanting to become an entrepreneur at a young age. And that's cool. That just wasn't me. I was 18, just graduated high school. I was roofing. I went to college because society told me to, and I had no path. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Certainly the thought of becoming an entrepreneur did not cross my mind. But I'm a firm believer in networking, and I was able to network with the right kind of people when I was 18. Despite me dropping out of college, I was able to network, work my butt off, and found sales. And, I'm a big believer if you can get that craft down and understand sales and communication, no matter, if you're a recovering drug addict, if you're a college dropout, if you don't have, family with wealth, there's a lot of opportunity if you understand sales.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think so many times, and I'll say this often, that we'll forget about the human aspect of business. And I think that you using the word, communication, building relationships, networking, doing those things is to me at the heart of, business. And if you're able to, understand that, and especially if you're able to excel, to me, the sky is the limit because you're able to have that human to human interaction that often can't be done necessarily as well by, computers and different analytics and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go from being entrepreneur, self-employed to leading a team and being an entrepreneur, you have to be able to communicate, articulate your vision, be able to pull people together and win together as a team. Can't do it alone. I mean, you certainly can make six figures on your own and hustle on your own and, make money on your own. I'm not disputing that, but there's levels, right? And, I'm not where I want to be financially. I've got about 14 employees, so we're a relatively small company. I just was at an event yesterday, and the co-CEO of Chipotle, he spoke, and this dude had, hundreds of thousands of employees, right? Chipotle was massive. So, I mean, there's just certainly levels to it. And there's two things that stuck out to me that he said yesterday is, leadership is boiled down to two things. One, your team has to be confident in their ability. Two, your team has to be encouraged by their circumstances. And I was like, man, that's just so basic and so true. Like, yes, there has to be competence. Your team has to know what they're doing. But two, like, you got to lead them. You got to make sure that they're encouraged in their environment. They're, encouraged in their circumstances, and they see the vision and they're motivated. So there's just a lot that goes to it, but it all boils down to communication and listening and, seeing how everyone can align and accomplish each other's goals together.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I appreciate you for sharing that so much and giving, those nuggets in that tidbit, because I think so many times, often the path to success, at least I'm a big believer in that, it's not necessarily hard to understand. You can say it in a simple way, but you just have to be able to execute it on a regular basis, getting everybody, on those same paths and on that same role. So I know you mentioned, a little bit about your team and how you're leading people. Could you take us through a little bit more on that and how exactly you're serving the clients you work with?
So for me, it's all about being able to replicate yourself, right? It's all about, a struggle that I've had and I'm still working on is empowering the team and delegating and putting people in the right spots. There might be someone on the team that has certain skills, but you've got them performing a different set of tasks where they actually should be on this other side. And a lot of times it's your own ego, it's your own inability to be self-aware. You're just so in the trenches where you're not seeing the forest, you're in the trees.
Mhm.
So it's really just being able to just maximize your team. It's like a sports team, right? So all people that like sports, you got your center, you got your point guard, you got people that can shoot the three, you got your people that can rebound. Like, are you setting up your team for success? And that's a struggle and a challenge for all business owners, right? Like being able to hire the right kind of people, train the right kind of people, have a good culture, and just making sure that people are in the right seat on the bus that you're driving.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, and I think it's definitely something that's underrated, because often, success is a team sport, and you have to make sure that you're having people in the right spots and positions, as you said so well with that analogy. Because I think so many times we all have our gifts and our talents, but to be able to kind of get everybody where they're at and to be able to be rowing in the same direction is really what it comes down to as a leader. And so, I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce, and this could be for Quest Education or yourself personally, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Just being able to help people understand in a basic way that they actually can access the money in their retirement accounts penalty and tax free. There's this myth that if you have a 401k or an IRA, that money is out of sight, out of mind. You can't control it, you can't access it. And a lot of people, they're not getting the knowledge from their financial advisors or their CPAs. Either one, because it hurts the pocketbooks of the financial advisors, it goes against their business model, or two, it's just a lack of knowledge. And there's ways, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have like an LLC, sole proprietorship, if you're a solopreneur, you've got some kind of side hustle, some kind of entrepreneurial activity, if that's you listening or watching this, and you have a 401k from an old job or an IRA, there are IRS approved ways for you to access this money penalty and tax free. And once people know that they can do that, they start thinking about other ways to control their own money, because at the end of the day, it's their money, right? Like they worked for it. They should be able to control it and have more options besides just the stock market. If they like the stock market, great. I'm not here to be adverse to that. I'm just a firm believer. An entrepreneur started the business to get more freedom, to have more time, to have more control. They should be able to have that with their retirement accounts. And those options are there. It's just a matter of them knowing how they work. And that's where we come in.
Yeah, I appreciate you for sharing that. And as I said, before, like knowledge is definitely power. And I think that, as you said, I think if you have an opportunity to have a business, you have the freedom, or even if you don't have a business, you want to be able to have the freedom to be able to decide how you're going to invest your money, what that looks like. And I think having the awareness of all the different options that are available to you is definitely one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to knowing the options, right? We don't know what
Mhm.
we don't know. So being
Yeah.
able to have that curtain pulled back and just know that it exists, it's always nice to just have another tool in your tool belt.
Yeah, absolutely. It never hurts to have tools in YouTube, but that's for sure. So, I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So, this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Routines. So like last night I was telling you there's that event I went to where the co-CEO of Chipotle spoke. We're networking. I didn't get home till like 11. I didn't go to bed till 11:30. I wake up every morning about 4:20 to 4:30 to go to the gym. And I need sleep, man. Like there's people out here that get 5, 6 hours of sleep and they're good. I envy that. I wish that was me. I need about like 7 to 8. Like that's my sweet spot of being optimal and not being groggy and things like that. So I'm getting like 4.5 hours of sleep. Alarm goes off. Like, man, I'm trying to go to the gym, but got up and I went, and I have that routine of just going in the morning, and just that's my time. That's my time to listen to podcasts or an audiobook, or maybe switch it up with some jams. And that's just my time to kind of like release my beast and release my stress, and just have some time to just focus what I'm going to do that day, be intentional. So I do my best to just get in that routine and do that every day, despite how I feel, despite my excuses. And that just sets the tone for the rest of the day. It doesn't have to be the gym, it could be just something that's a routine for you in the morning is work for me.
Yeah, that's why I appreciate you saying that, and the word routines, because I think so many times I'll say often that the systems will set you free, because it gives you that opportunity to really kind of be present, in the business, in the life, everything that you're doing, because you have those things that you're doing on a regular basis. You're setting yourself up for success. And I think especially from, business leaders and entrepreneurs and CEOs, so many things are sometimes going awry. So many fires are being put out, that having that opportunity to set yourself up for success in the morning allows you that opportunity to really make sure that you're as present as possible when those things happen, if you've already taken care of the things that you need to.
For sure, 100% agree. And it's tough. You're juggling family, personal, business. Maybe you're still working a 9 to 5, right? Like you just have every reason not to do something early in the morning. But if you could just get in the habit of making it happen, no matter what, you just get an injection of confidence, and it can be momentum for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, the injection of confidence, because I think so many times I was reading something or writing something, maybe it was, that a lot of times we learn a lot about ourselves when we don't want to necessarily get up. We don't feel like getting up, but we get up anyways. It shows us a lot of resilience. It shows us things that we'll use for that day, but also later on in our lives, there's going to be a time where you don't feel like doing something. You're going to be like, I remember when, so and so happened that day, and you start to use that momentum in certain pockets because you've proven it to yourself.
Yeah, man. That's what I tell my 12-year-old daughter. She's like, Dad, why do I have to do this dumb homework? Like, when am I going to use this in life? Like, do you use this homework, like what I'm learning right now in your life? And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm not going to lie to you. However, like, you're doing something that you don't want to do. And that's life. When you get older, there's going to be a bunch of stuff that you still got to do that you don't want to do, but you got to do it anyways. And so, I try to pass that on to a 12-year-old teenage girl. And you know how that goes. They got a little attitude. So we'll see how much she actually retains.
Yeah, absolutely. But all you can do definitely as a parent is you plant those seeds, and those
Yeah.
seeds, end up blossoming into a wonderful thing. So that's all you can do, is set out those skills and that opportunity for people to be successful. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I wanted to ask you now for what I call CEO Nugget. So this might be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. It might be something you touched on, or you could tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
The worst case scenario, or what you think like is ultimately going to happen. Like, we all have that idea or that vision of like, man, this is all going to come to an end, or like I'm stressed out about this happening, like that worst case scenario, right? And that worst case scenario is probably not even going to happen. Like, the likelihood of it happening, yes, it's there, but like, you're spending so much time thinking about like that worst case scenario where you're missing out on the present. And I can't tell you how many times, in business, I've thought about, well, shoot, man, like, this is going to work. Like, I might lose a bunch of money. Like, am I going to have to fold shop? Am I going to have to quit? Like, what's going to happen? And it's just like, man, what's the point of thinking about that? Like, I'm thinking about something that's not even real. It hasn't even happened. So we forget that our mind is so powerful, and our mind likes to play tricks on us. So, you just gotta chill, like, just chill out when you start to think like that, and just know you're just tripping over something that's not even real, hasn't even happened, and you're taking away from the present and what you could do now to live a better life next month, next year, 5 years from now. So don't sleep on that.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that as well, because I think so many times, the present is a present, so to speak, and I think when we start to be able to drill down on that and understand when we're not spending time and energy in the present, that's when we can kind of redirect ourselves. But I don't remember the right words in the quote, but I think a lot of the stress that we have is because we're frustrated, or we're anxious about things that are coming before us, or we're regretting things that came behind us. And when we spend time, not in the present, in the future, in the past, that robs us of that opportunity that we have for today, and to be able to kind of lean in on today.
Yeah, 100%. You're stealing from your future.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And so I want to ask you now my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So, Daniel, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Be okay not paying yourself. There's been times in my business where you got to write checks for other people. You got to keep the ship floating. You got to keep people in the game. So you got to be prepared to not pay yourself for certain periods of time because money's going back in the business. So you got to be ready for that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, and I think, and I don't know if you would agree, to this as well too. I feel like we always think of money, and that's definitely something that happens, but it's also
Yeah.
time and energy. A lot of times, you're making those investments into the business, and you don't necessarily get those dividends right there. But it's all about investing those resources so that you have a vision, you have that opportunity, it pays fruits later on.
Yeah, I mean, you're investing into a startup, something that has a lot of risk of failing, but you were so crazy enough to believe in that dream and that vision that you put yourself in a position to make it happen. You invested time, you invested money. I guess it's not going to happen overnight. People have this preconceived notion that they're going to make it work in a year and 2 years, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen. There's been some. I know people that have struck it really well with a business, and they're doing well within a year or two, like that happens. But most of the people that I know, and most people that too, that we're talking right now, and the listeners, they know, like, and you think about Apple, you think about Microsoft, you think about these big companies, like it took them years. I mean, 5, 10 years to really break through and start seeing the fruits of their labor. So it's definitely the long game with being a CEO.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I appreciate you sharing that because I think there's not enough narrative around that. And one of the things that I remind myself and I'll say often is that the secret to the overnight success is it takes 10 years. And as you
Yeah,
talked about, Apple, being in the garage, or even if you've been online and you've seen the Jeff Bezos picture of him with like a cardboard box written in Amazon.com and like
yeah,
Sharpie,
yeah,
it,
yeah.
it doesn't happen overnight. And I think
No,
that part of the frustration that a lot of people have that we talked about in the Nugget is because people don't realize that's exactly what it is. For more majority of the people, it is going to be a grind and it's going to take time.
yeah. They either fail. Most businesses fail. One, two. Most businesses take a lot of time to make money,
Yeah.
to be profitable, to be scalable, to really hit that growth. It's like a kid, right? Like you start a business, it's a kid, it's a baby. You can't even take
Mhm.
care of itself. Then it grows into an infant. Then it's a toddler. Then it can ride a bike without training wheels. Then one day it gets its license and it can drive. Then it turns into an adult, right? It's like same thing with the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even too, those people that sometimes do hit the quote unquote more of an overnight success, so to speak, if you really like listen to their story and some of the things that you do, sometimes you'll hear that they had certain skills, they had certain experience. So even though they weren't building the business, they were building themselves or something around them
Yeah,
in order to build the business. So it didn't necessarily happen overnight. It was still
for
kind of
sure.
like that painstaking kind of grueling at times, tasks and chopping at the tree, so to speak, to get to where you want to be.
For sure. 100% agree. There's levels to it.
Absolutely. Well, Daniel, truly appreciate that definition, and I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is just pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find about all the awesome things you and your team are working on.
Yeah, I think the best way to if what I said connected with you in some way, shape, or form, and you want to check out more what I'm doing, I've got a podcast called How Winners Win. We talk about winning in life, personal, financial, business. Obviously, I own a financial company, so we're going to drop some nuggets on making money tax free and things like that. But we also talk about like adversity and struggles. So just being able to help as many people as we can become better versions of themselves. And then I'm pretty active on Instagram, Daniel Blue. You can follow me there. I'm on Facebook as well. And I do my best to just put out relevant content that could, entertain people, inspire them, and educate them, and again help them make some kind of improvement with their life.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I truly appreciate that, Daniel. We will have the links and information in the show notes. Love the name of the podcast as well, too. How Winners Win. Who doesn't want to win? In so many different ways in life. So I love how you're able to kind of incorporate that into all the knowledge and information that you have. So appreciate you, my friend, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
All right, thanks, Gresh, for having me.